Good evening, and welcome to a special edition of Washington Week. Our subject tonight is the future of the media, Washington media, corporate media, all media. And my guest is one of the great analysts and interpreters of our communications future, Kara Swisher. She is the host of the podcast On with Kara Swisher and the co-host of Pivot. And she's great, and I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The future of media.
The future, you are.
All right.
You are the future of media.
I'm kind of old for that.
You know what the future of media is?
What?
Washington Week with The Atlantic.
Oh, okay.
That's yeah,
All right. Okay.
You heard it here first
good.
and possibly
yeah,
last.
TV numbers are...
No, we're good.
Okay.
We're good.
All right.
Everybody at home, we're
All
good.
right. Okay.
We're
All
great.
right.
All right, Kara. First things first, let's talk about Donald Trump and his relationship to the media. I want you to watch something, actually, before we go into this. This is Trump just the other day.
These networks and these cable networks are real losers. You're gutless losers. I say that to CNN because I watch it. I have no choice. I got to watch that garbage. It's all garbage. It's all fake news.
So the large question is, 10 years, what have you learned about Washington media in particular by watching Washington media cover Trump? But, you know, the specific question on that is, what is he doing there? What's this performance about?
Well, this is a lot of his old performances. He does a lot of oldies, and he's very good at them. You know, I think here it's interesting. He's talking about cable and calling them losers, and yet he can't stop talking about them, which says more about Donald Trump than about cable. He's right, in fact, that cable's gone down precipitously, and that viewers are going elsewhere and everything else. But he has a fixation on it, and I would say that would be a weakness of his. But in the case of people covering him, they don't understand what a phenomenon he is from a media point of view. You don't love to give Donald Trump a compliment some of the time, but he's really good at media, or the new media, almost by accident, but also intuitively.
Right. So when he's going after CNN, is he really angry at CNN, or is that a professional wrestling performance?
Well, you've been in that situation where he said, right? What's the first thing he said to you? I'm going to get your ratings up. Everything is about ratings for Donald Trump and about performance and performative behavior. Like, we obliterated them. Like, they didn't obliterate them, but he felt he had to say it, and so he sets the tone. And he does understand, again, in a lizard brain that he has here, because I wouldn't say he's modern in terms of, he's somewhat of a Luddite when it comes to technology, but he does understand how it moves through the system. And he has always done that, whether it was way back in the day when he did The Apprentice or to now. He is the one who really has. Everyone thought Obama was the digital president, but this is the guy who is.
That's interesting. You think Trump is better at digital than Barack Obama?
Yes, yeah. He understands the nature of it, the virality, the posting, the ability to get things going and then move on to the next
thing. The domination of the cycle.
The domination, or just the spectacle of it. He does understand it, and he understands the speed of it. And the word they use is snackable moments. That's what he does really well. And then you move on, and then the media, the older media, is caught here, like, looking at what he said, but he's gone on to the next thing.
You know what's so interesting about this is, we talked about this when I was on your podcast, in the Signal controversy.
Right.
What I asked him, what did you learn from that, or why did you think that I was, quote, successful? That's what he posted in the Signal moment. And he said, well, because you got a lot of attention. Right. It wasn't that we plugged a gap in the national security communications apparatus. It was like,
good job on that.
It was like, it was that the news cycle didn't belong to him for several hours, and whoever can take the news cycle away from him gets his kind of attention.
It was a good on you. It was like you created a moment, and a viral moment, and so he understands virality better than almost any politician.
Well, talk about the Washington press corps and take us from the escalator moment when we're dealing with this. Because remember, the escalator moment was also the Mexican rapist moment. That was when, we're going there?
Yes.
And so take us through this and give me your analysis. How well is the Washington media writ large doing, the mainstream traditional media?
Badly, if following him. Yes, I think some of it. No, some of the people that are doing the investigative stuff, they're doing their job great. They uncovering it. The question is, how much do people actually care? And that's a very different discussion to be having. But one of the things that when he came down that escalator, I tell this story a lot, but I was at a Washington party. It was a barbecue, and everyone was making fun of him. Like, oh, how silly, this is so silly. I had watched all The Apprentices. I liked The Apprentice. I thought it was a good show. I knew it was wrestling, I got it. It was not really business, and he isn't a very good business person, but it hardly mattered. It was a good story. And I said, oh, I don't know, I think he's kind of appealing. And they were like, oh, it's ridiculous, he's a clown. I'm like, yeah, but I like him, and I'm a lesbian from San Francisco. Like, what does that say? And I have liberal leanings. And it was interesting that they didn't take the seriousness of what he was aspirational. He looked like a business person. He was people's version of a rich person. And he played the part really well. And I think they tried to pretend that didn't matter, so much so that, if you remember, the Huffington Post put him in the entertainment section. And I got in an argument with her. I'm like, no, he has sense of humor. He's got speed. He does understand digital really well, intuitively at the very least. Maybe he is, covfefe, whatever.
Yeah.
But he does understand.
He's not great at spelling or typing, which is, by the way, weirdly part of the charm.
Right, exactly. But it doesn't matter. He's into it, and he does understand the speed and virality. And that's when everything started to change with Twitter, which was it used to be about context, speed for sure, the internet, and getting the right thing, Google.
So if you were the czar of all mainstream media,
yes, that's
which you're
illegal in this
not,
country. Yep.
but if you were, and you were in charge of telling the mainstream newspapers, the networks, CNN, The Atlantic, The New Yorker, et cetera, the wire services, this is the way you should cover Donald Trump. This would be the way to do it. What would that way be?
I think you have to, look, there's a part for investigative reporting, which is very different, right? It is. Like, you have to look at the, accountability journalism is critical. And reporting is the best way to handle it. Like, he says this is what happened. He says this. But one of the things they were doing is they sort of lived in this. I remember being in the biggest argument with a Washington Post editor about the word lie. They wouldn't use the word lie. They were living in a different era than this guy was. And so I was like, he's lying. And they're like, yeah, we can't say lie because we don't know his intent. I'm like, well, then you've already lost the thing. He is. And one of the difficulties is sort of saying what was happening. They were assuming everything was the same rules applied. And it didn't with this guy, because he was able to go around them. They hardly mattered, especially with the people that voted for him.
Right. So let me ask you this. Is trust in the mainstream media low because of Trump's attacks?
No.
Or because we're bad at our jobs? Or both? Or something else entirely?
I don't pay a lot of attention to that, because trust in the media has always been bad, going back to revolutionary times. I mean, like, sorry, they jailed journalists then. They didn't like journalists was an ick profession. There was only a period of time when we were heroes, which was during Watergate. And so media love has not been a great big thing for a long, long time. I do think one of the things is we don't look at media as a little bit like product. We're not making things people want to consume. And there are ways to look at the Atlantic. You're growing like crazy. Why is that? It's not because you're doing like viral videos. I don't see Jeff Goldberg like Mr. Beast burying himself in 6 feet of earth and seeing what happens. Like,
although that's not a bad idea.
I think it's a great idea. You're making products people want to buy. And I think that's got lost among the media, not understanding the financial dynamics, for sure, which was that Facebook and Google were sucking up all the oxygen in advertising and not shifting fast enough in that regard, and still making the same. It was like butter churns. I kept going, when I was at the Washington Post, I was like, we're making butter churns. Like, nobody wants a butter churn. Like, and
you felt that at the Washington Post?
I did. And then at the Wall Street Journal, which is why I kept creating all these entrepreneurial, digital forward things first. At one point when I was writing, I remember at the Journal, I was writing up earnings. And I was like, why am I doing this? Why am I spending this many minutes of my life writing something a computer could do? And a computer will do it. And they were like, well, we have to write the earnings. I'm like, yes, but I'm not adding. There was nothing additive to what I was doing.
It was just matching things that 10 other people were doing.
We also didn't, one of the things we did, I think, pioneer at our different sites that we did, All Things D and Recode, was we were telling you what was happening. And you all do that very well at The Atlantic. I did a story about Webvan, and I did the reporting, and I wrote, this is a disaster, right? This is a disaster. And an editor came to me and said, well, you need to have someone else say that. I'm like, yeah, but I did the reporting, and I can do math. It's a disaster. We should just say it. And then the reader trusts us more because they're taking we've done the work. Reported analysis is valuable to people. Right. And they're like, well, you need to get someone else to say it. And also you need to say, some people say, it's going to go well. And I was like, nobody intelligent says that. Why should we do that? And I think readers really trust people who, one, tell them after doing reporting what they think happened, and then secondly, being right later. And I think that's one of the things. But being right later depends on the reporting you do at the top of it.
Right. Let me ask you, since we both started our professional careers more or less at the Washington Post, which was a juggernaut, and I think we both have very fond feelings and memories of the Washington Post. Jeff Bezos, who bought it a number of years ago, did fine as an owner through the first Trump
I don't
term.
agree with that. But
well, okay, then we can pick apart that in a second. But he had Marty Baron as the editor, and they held the Trump team to account, just like you would hold any administration to an account. And then something changed. You are the anthropologist of the billionaire tech bro elite. What happened at the Washington Post over the last 3 or 4 years?
I don't think he prepared for post-Trump. I think he wasn't involved, and he should have been involved, actually, a little more involved. And I think what they did is they sort of rode on the Trump entertainment train. And then they did, and then you saw the New York Times add Wordle. When they did Wordle, everyone sort of laughed at it. I'm like, oh, good idea. That's a great idea. Like, daily use was something you want people to do in some fashion, along with the other stuff. But you could see news at the New York Times was sort of doing this. It wasn't doing this. You had to start to bring in other things. And the Post was used to be really good at that. Ben Bradley introduced the style section, the food section. They were so innovative in terms of their product, and Bezos never innovated. That was my feeling, by not being around, because he could care less.
There's another side of this, which is that now he seems to be giving in to demands of the Trump administration. How do you explain that part?
Because he wants things. Because during the first one, remember, it was the Washington Post, Bezos, remember they kept affiliating? He started not getting contracts of things that he actually cared about, which was space travel, the things to do with his other companies, Blue Origin, possibilities of attacks on Amazon. Those are the things he actually cares about. I don't think he could care less about the media, honestly.
But you really don't think, going back to your dissent before, you don't think that he did a good job in his early years as owner of the Washington Post?
I think he didn't. I think he staying away is always a good thing, but staying away is a bad thing. He never innovated, and he has innovative ideas, and he never did innovative things during that period of time that the New York Times did. So I look at the New York Times and I look at them. They had every opportunity to do the same thing, and a better owner, by the way, who did understand where things were going digitally. It's fine, but they didn't do anything to take advantage of the next thing or whatever.
You surprised at all by the behavior of some of the network giants? You know where I'm going with this question. Yeah. Why aren't you surprised?
Because their interests have always been for shareholders. And now when they're in distress because of tech companies, which has taken away their businesses and hollowed out, like, you know, ABC is a shadow of itself. So is CBS. It's, you know, it's lovely that someone like David Ellison wants to own it, but it's only because he has a rich dad, right? It's not a business that's growing. And maybe he could make it one, but at this point it's not. And so they're under enormous pressure from a business point of view, from everything being taken away, like by the tech giants. And now they have to protect what they have with shareholders. And so, no, there's no plus for them as a CEO, especially if you're paid for the stock price or cutting costs, to get in a fight with the Trump administration.
What about your everlasting soul?
Well, yes, there's that.
I mean, no, and I'm not.
I'm sorry.
I'm not joking. You know, it's like at the end of your life, don't you want to don't you want to be remembered as a Kay Graham and not as, I don't know, someone who just gave in to power?
Maybe if you were in an industry that was growing, maybe you would. But when you're in an industry that's diminishing and that it could mess up your other businesses, everything is about shareholder value, including with the tech guys. Why do you think they were sitting in the front row? Do you think they love Trump? A little bit, not very much. He's useful to them, and they're definitely useful to him.